Welcome back again to Joe Stunner Boxing. It's April and I'm still cold. Anyway, sympathise. Anyway, don't bother. Right, Diego Pacheco versus Shawn McCalman. Who have we got in this one? Because they meet at the weekend. McCalman is undefeated, but I know very little about him. Pacheco I know a fair bit about because he's the big starlet, 23 years old, 6'4", which is tall weight for the 168 poundage. He's 20 wins and 17 KOs. McCalman is 15 wins and I think 7 KOs. McCalman's 7 years older. He's 30. And I think on BoxRec he's listed as an orthodox fighter. But whenever I've seen him, which I've only seen him a few times, but he's kind of switch hits a lot, or he's ambidextrous maybe, or, whatever you want to call it. But certainly the quality of his opposition has been much lower. And when you got a guy who's 30 who's 15-0, and he's only faced lower guys, it probably means people don't expect a great deal of him. Now, that's not to say he's a bad fighter. He had 3 fights last year, and he won 2 of them by knockout. One by a third-round KO over Bo Gibbs. The other 2, one was against a guy called Money Powell the fourth or something. I can't remember who the other one was, but the 2 distance fights were 8-rounders, and he's fought guys who have winning records. He fought Marcus Moore, who was 10-0 at the time. Again, I don't know a great deal about Marcus Moore. That was in 2022. He had 2 fights in 2022. So at least he's been busy. He's got a 6-round unanimous decision over Vaughan Alexander, who I've seen many times before. Prior, I don't know, 15 fights, McCalman. It's a mixture of sort of C-plus fighters and D-level fighters. So he hasn't really, for the age of 30, this is really his coming out party if he's ever going to have one. Whereas Pacheco, who, as I say, is only 23, he's looked the part because he's beaten Jack Cullen. He knocked out in 4 rounds. That was a good win. That was in Mexico, actually. I should point out, he's backed by Eddie Hearn Matchroom, and he's on DAZN. This card will be shown on DAZN. Marcelo Caceres, who gave Billy Joe Saunders a good fight. He beat him in 9 rounds. That was his last fight. He's been quite busy. I think he had 3 fights last year, same as McCalman, but again, higher level, probably of opposition. Manuel Gallegos, whatever it is, I can't remember his name exactly. Gallegos. That was a fight, I think, in Mexico as well, and he stopped him in 4 rounds. But Gallegos, if I've got his name right, I think he only had 1 defeat in 20 or 22 previously. So he's been fighting a better quality of opposition than McCalman, and I would say he's been fighting sort of B- fighters, guys who can give you rounds unless you're on your game. Like I say, 6'4" tall with a very long wingspan as well, Pacheco, but he's got power. 17 KOs in 20 indicates that he doesn't mind standing and fighting, exchanging. I wouldn't say he fights small to the point of, like Sebastian Fundora did until he fought Tim Tszyu, where, you've got a 6'6", 154-pounder who fights really small. No, Pacheco, he'll exchange, he'll be proactive, he'll go in at you, but he won't neglect his height and his range. He'll kind of, I guess you'd call it box fighting. He'll use the height, the range to control the distance, and then once he's comfortable and confident, he'll start unloading. And he does throw very, very hurtful punches. When you consider he is only 23 years old, he's going to move up the weight divisions eventually, but he probably hasn't got his man strength yet either. And I really like what I see. I think he's been brought along very, very well, Pacheco. Very well for such a young man. Clearly, he's a precocious talent. I think they have high expectations of him, and I think that's good because, and he can be sort of fast-tracked, but not too quickly. I mean, this is for a couple of those WBC and WBO belts. One might be a USA belt. I think the other one's a international or intercontinental belt, some crap. Both of them owned by Pacheco, and if they do have a purpose, those belts, it is, I think, for younger fighters to win them and defend them and learn the trade at a reasonably higher level, because it gets you the ranking, but at the same time, it's not like it's a mandatory or an eliminator for the world title. It can get you into the mix, and then you can fight sort of top 20 guys. Well, I don't know if I'd call Shawn McCalman a top 20 guy, not at 168. Again, I mean, he could, if he ends up losing this fight on points and gives Pacheco a very good fight, then his stock will rise. But if I'm being honest, from what I've seen of McCalman, like I say, he switch hits a fair bit. He's listed on BoxRec as he's listed one way or the other. I think he's listed as an orthodox fighter, but I've seen him use both stances in fights, and he does have a tendency he reaches with the jab a bit too much, which leaves a gap for the overhand right. And if you're in against the guy with a long reach, you don't want to be doing that. He's okay. From what I've seen, he's all right. There's nothing wrong with him. He has the basics, the fundamentals down well. But I haven't seen anything that suggests to me that he's more than, say, a B- fighter. And that's probably not going to be enough for Pacheco. It's difficult for me to talk any further about styles because, again, Shawn McCalman is an unknown commodity. I haven't seen a great deal of him. Now, it's not as if he's been, 10 rounds a load of times, because Pacheco hasn't. Pacheco ends his fights. I mean, the Caceres fight lasted into the 9th. That's a rarity for Pacheco. Earlier on in his career, I think he did a couple of 8-rounders, went the distance. But if you look at Shawn McCalman, I mean, he really, yes, he's been the 8-round distance on several times because he doesn't have a big punch, but it's against people who are a few leagues below Pacheco, and it's not as if this guy is used to going long distances and could drag Pacheco into the deep waters. I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm going to predict, bearing in mind this is over 12 rounds because it is for a couple of those alphabet soup trinkets, I'm going to predict a knockout for Diego Pacheco. How long will it take him? I would say middle round, 6, 7, 8, somewhere around that. 6, 7, 8, yeah. I think McCalman might find himself on the floor before then, but he'll get up. He'll do his best, but I don't see him troubling Diego Pacheco. I think this will be a middle rounds knockout for Diego Pacheco, and he will improve to 21 wins, no draws, no defeats, and 18 KOs. But we'll see. You never know. Sometimes people surprise us. Shawn McCalman, undefeated, got a bit of pride, can fight a little bit. If Pacheco has an off day and McCalman has a good one, you just never know, do you? All right, then. Perhaps you've seen more of McCalman than I have. Tell me about him. Who do you think is going to win? Are you looking forward to the fight? Comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you know, and please hit the like button, and I will read your comments and answer as many as I can. Until then, thank you very much for your time as always. Spread the word about Joe's Son of Boxing. Bye for now.